Hello and welcome to Fox Gaming. Today we are continuing our series about how to play Warhammer 40k 10th edition. Today we're going to talk about how to muster your army and how to set up a mission. We will also go through special rules in regards to setting up the mission and deploying your forces. Here we can see two armies that I have made using the rules for mustering your army. The army on the left is the Tyranids and the army of the right is the Space Wolves. So the first thing that you need to do when you are going to play a battle of Warhammer 40k is to determine the battle size. This will determine how many points each of your armies are going to be and in turn how long the battle is going to last. Each unit have a point cost value, and the higher the points, the more powerful the unit. You can agree on whichever point value you want, but there are three main point values that are used in this game. And that is 1,000 points for what is called an incursion, 2,000 points for what is called a strike force, and 3,000 points for what is called an onslaught. These two armies that you see in front of you is roughly about 1,000 points each. To figure out the points value of your units, you have to refer to the codex of that particular army. It is important to have an army roster that have all the details of your army when you are playing the game. There are many ways to do this. One of them is to use the Warhammer 40,000 app. Where you can make your army from scratch, or you can just write it down on your phone or a piece of paper. You also need to write down your faction keyword on the army roster. For example, the Tyranid force to the left will have the keyword Tyranids. Next, you will have to choose your detachments. Most of the armies have different detachments. For example, the Tyranids have a detachment called Invasion Fleet, but they also have a lot of other different detachments to choose from. These detachments give you benefits and drawbacks. Another example is the Space Wolves. They are part of the Space Marines, but the Space Wolf detachment is a different detachment within the Space Marines. And to choose that, you get access to some other units that you would not have in another Space Marine detachment. Next, you choose the units that you want to have in your army. There are some rules to this. For example, you need to have at least one character in your army. There's also some other restrictions, for there are different types of units, and one of those units are battle line units. These are your main troops that are good at claiming objectives, etc. These units you can have up to 6 of the same unit type in your army. For the rest of the units you include, you can have a maximum of 3 of the same kind. This will mean that, for example, this Trigon over here, you can have up to 3 of that one. And these Termagants over here, you can have up to 6 units of them, because they are battle line units, and the Trigon is not. Dedicated transport is also able to be up to 6 units, like this Rhino. This is a dedicated transport, and so they can be 6 of them on your army roster. In regards to characters, the same rules apply, except if it is a named character, like this one over here. He is a special character, or an epic hero as it's called, and you can only bring one of them. You can, however, have multiple named characters, but you cannot have more of the same one. This chaplain over here is not a named character, and so you can include 3 of him if you like. In this step, you also can give your characters enhancements. Only characters can have them, and epic heroes cannot. Remember that your army has to be equal or below the point value that you and your opponent have set for this game. So in this case, if you play a 1,000 points army, you can have up to 1,000 points of models, not 1,001. This means that some armies will be just below 1000 points, while others will be exactly 1000 points. It doesn't make much of a difference though. The last thing you have to do when creating your army is to select a warlord. This is basically your leader for the army, and you have to choose one, and you can only have one. Next, we will talk about missions. Before you start to play a game, you need to choose a mission. There are a lot of different missions to choose from. When you have chosen your mission, there are usually 11 steps you have to go through to set up the battlefield and the armies. The first one is muster your army, and that we have previously discussed. Next, there will be a mission objective, and that can vary from mission to mission. Usually there is a primary mission and a secondary mission, and there can also be special rules associated with this mission. In the next step, you create the battlefield. The size of the armies depict how large the battlefield will be. In this case, we have a 1000 point versus 1000 points. So that will be a 60-inch by 44-inch board, as we have here. There may also be rules for how terrain is set up and objective markers. Here I have just made an example of a battlefield. Next, the players should determine who will be the attacker and who will be the defender. In this case, the defender will deploy over here and the attacker will deploy over there. The players will roll off to see who will be the attacker and the defender. The highest scoring player becomes the attacker. The red die here is the Tyranids and the white is the Space Marines. So here we can see that the Space Marines became the attacker. That means that the Tyranids will be the defender. The next step is to determine battle formations, and this is basically which character will be in which unit will be in which transport, and which units will start the game in reserves. This is something that each player determines secretly. The next step is to deploy the armies, and in this case, the only war mission, the players alternate placing out units, starting with the attacker, which in this case is the Space Wolves. This can be different in different scenarios, but this is a main way to do it. Here you can see that I have marked off the deployment zones for the armies. The Space Marine player deploys over here and have to deploy behind the red dice over there, and the Tyranids will deploy on this side behind these dice. It makes so that the armies will start at least 24 inches from each other. Here we can see an example of two deployed armies. It may look a little bit unfair at the moment, but there is a reason for this. These Space Marine tanks are transports, which means that they can have models start battle inside them. Here I have represented each unit with a model on top of the tank, and the character over here in the Land Raider and one over there. The rest of the units are deployed outside of the gaming board, and they can go out of their transport in later stages of the game. This Wolf Lord with his Wolf retinue are starting the battle in reserves, and we will come back to how that works later. The Tyranids deployed almost all of their units on the board, except for this one unit that they held in reserves. Next, we have to determine which player will get the first turn, and once again it's a roll-off, with the highest scoring player getting the first turn. So the white dice is the Space Wolves and the red dice is the Tyranids. There we can see that the Space Wolf will get the first turn. Next, we resolve any pre-battle rules. As an example, in this game I have brought the Gene Stealers, and they have a rule called Scout 8. That means that before the battle begins, they can move up to 8 inches in any direction they want. So they just moved 8 inches to this column to get some cover. And now the battle will begin, starting with the player who got the first turn. In this case, it's the Space Wolves. The battle will last for 5 battle rounds, when each player can make 1 turn in each battle round. So each player gets 5 turns. If an army is utterly destroyed, the battle will end sooner, but if not, the 5th battle round will be the last one. The last step is to determine who won the battle, and to determine that we use victory points. In this mission, the victory points are scored for claiming the objectives on the battlefield. The player with the most amount of victory points will win the game. If it is a tie, then the game is a draw. Next, we will talk about objective markers, as they are crucial for winning the game. To be within range of an objective marker, the model needs to be within 3 inches of the marker horizontally and 5 inches vertically. In this example, the termagant is within 3 inches of the objective marker. It's the edge that you measure from, not the center. It's within 3 and has then control of the objective. But what if 2 units are within the objective marker's control zone? In this case, both the Trigon and 3 Space Marines are within 3 inches of the objective marker. You then have to look at the datasheet on the objective control stat. A Trigon has an objective control of 5, and each Space Marine have an objective control of 2. So in this case, the Space Marines will have control of the objective, because they have 6 objective control, while the Trigon has 5. The mission will tell you when you score victory points. In the case of this mission, only war, the player who controls an objective marker scores 1 victory point. The victory points is calculated at the end of the command phase of each respective player. So in the Space Marines' turn, in their command phase at the end, they will score 1 victory point for each objective they control. Normally, you do not get victory points for controlling objectives in your opponent's turn. And usually, for victory points for objectives, they are calculated from turn 2 and onwards. So in turn 1, there will be no victory points for objectives. Now, this is it for this video. I hope you learned something, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. Please like and subscribe because it helps me a ton. In the next couple of videos, we will go through every phase of a player turn, so stay tuned for that. This is it for now. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content like this. By subscribing, you'll stay up to date with our latest videos and be a part of our growing community. We appreciate your support, and it encourages us to create more valuable content. So go ahead, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll see you in the next video.